Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. So you are watching my YouTube channel. I am Salman Anjum and we are going to discuss today another very important molecule of life, which is ATP. So before I explain what ATP is, I would want you to think about from where you get energy basically. So of course your answer would be that you eat some food and you get the energy. But maybe if you think a little further, what your bodies do with that food and how the way they convert that thing into energy. Of course, you can answer that there happen some chemical reactions with the food that you eat, and then that food releases out some energy. But maybe you know which kind of energy your body can produce. Maybe you think that it is the radiations, which is the form of energy your body is producing. Yeah, your body produces radiations so that your body can stay warm. But when your body is performing chemical reactions with the food that you eat, is it chemically converting your food into certain radiations or into something else? Basically, your body is converting your food into another chemical, which is called ATP. And that is basically the energy that you are getting. And that is the topic of today. Okay, let me ask this way. Which kind of food can give you ATP then? Yes, every kind of food mostly can give you the ATP. But primarily, as I would have explained before, primarily these are carbohydrates, which your body likes them to convert them into ATP. Or if I say more specifically, for example, if you eat glucose, so your body can convert that glucose into another chemical which is called ATP. So basically ATP is another chemical present inside your body, inside your cells. And this is a very important molecule of life. So the purpose of ATP is to be available whenever your body requires energy. But before, we have to explain what ATP means. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. As the name is indicating, this molecule contains 3-phosphate, which is as triphosphate. Right. So this is the energy currency available or stored inside your cell. Whenever you want to use it, it is readily available. For example, you want to talk, you want to speak, you want to eat something, you want to run, you want to perform exercise, or you are just walking, or you are just sitting, your heart is beating, your blood is running. So every activity inside your body is basically dependent upon this energy currency, which is ATP. So what happens if this currency lowers down a little? Of course, you start to feel hunger. You need to eat more food so that your body can replenish the lost amount of ATP. So when the number of ATP brings back in the cell, your body tells you that you are feeling healthier and you are again ready to perform daily tasks. So, like the way on the slides you can see, this is ATP, and the purpose of ATP is to give you energy. It is also called as the fuel for different cellular activities. As I said before, as you can see in the third point, so these ATPs, they are basically coming from the chemical reactions performed on carbohydrates, as well as they come from the breakdown of fats. They also come from by breaking down proteins, and ultimately they become ATP, and they are staying inside the cell and are readily available for different functions. So those chemical reactions which convert carbohydrates into ATP, or those chemical reactions which convert or break down ATP into certain other molecules, those kind of chemical reactions are called hydrolysis reactions, or in short, hydrolysis. Hydrolysis means it is composed of two words. Hydro means water and lysis means to break. So if you want to convert glucose into ATP, you'll have to break glucose through a process called hydrolysis. Okay, so maybe at this point, this much is good enough regarding this very important molecule that everyone loves to have, and that is the purpose that we eat different kind of food, so that our body should contain a lot of ATP all the time, readily available for different tasks. So we move on then to another very important and a very famous molecule, and that is nucleic acids. So this is, you can say, so far the fourth or fifth molecule that we have been defining. For example, carbohydrates are the molecules, proteins are the molecules, lipids are the molecule of life. Exactly the same way ATP are the molecules of life, and then the nucleic acids. They're also very important. So first of all, why the name nucleic acids? It is again composed of two different words. First part is nucleic, that means they are present inside the cell, inside the nucleus. Secondly, why they are called acids? Of course, they are not that strong acids, but yes, they are acidic in nature. If you define them through chemistry, they behave like an acid. They have acidic properties, very little acidic properties, but they are acids, so they are named as nucleic acids or acids of the nucleus. So number one, now we know that they are present inside the nucleus. They are a big molecule. So if we say they are big molecules, they are polymers of something, that means they are made by certain monomers, and their monomers are named as nucleotides. If I put this thing this way, that what are the monomers of starch or some carbohydrate, you would answer glucose. Like you keep on adding glucose, so ultimately you get a long chain, and that is called a carbohydrate, let's say starch. What about proteins? In the case of proteins, the monomers are amino acids, and if you keep adding amino acids over each other, you get a long chain, and that long chain is called a protein, while the monomer is called an amino acid. Exactly the same way, in the case of nucleic acids, if you take nucleotides and you keep adding nucleotides over each other, so you get a long chain, and that long chain is called a nucleic acid, and nucleotide becomes its monomer. And I can show you it this way. For example, again, this is my micro whiteboard. Let's say this is one nucleotide. You are attaching another nucleotide, then you are attaching another nucleotide, and if you keep on attaching multiple nucleotides with each other, so this long thing is called a nucleic acid. Right. Then how many types of nucleic acids are present inside our cell? There are basically two types. One is called DNA and the second one is called RNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, while RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. So the basic difference between DNA and RNA is that DNA does not contain oxygen at least at one point where RNA does contain. That is why the word deoxy is placed before the name of DNA. While RNA is not deoxy, it is just ribonucleic acid. But of course, this is not the only difference between the two. There are very important major differences in their function as well as in their structure that we are going to study maybe in the next lectures or a little bit in this lecture. So then the question comes into our mind, what is the purpose of the DNA inside the cell? Or who is more important, with the DNA or the RNA? If I say the DNA in the case of human beings, animals, and plants, it is the DNA which is more important. So this is correct. The reason is that DNA is the one which produces RNA. But there are exceptions, of course, to this rule, that there are microorganisms which contain RNA, and that is very, very important to them. So in our case, it is the DNA which is very important, and DNA produces RNA. So the integrity of the DNA is really important for the cell. So cell tries to protect our DNA from any harmful effect. Let's say if our RNA is damaged for some reason, so you have the DNA, so you can make another copy of RNA. But what happens if the DNA is wrong or DNA is damaged? So a damaged or wrong DNA would always produce a wrong or bad RNA. So that means the template, the blueprint, the DNA should stay all time fine and happy. And there are, of course, multiple processes inside the cell that make sure the DNA is staying happy. Another importance of the DNA is that your DNA contains genes. And through genes, the DNA can control all the activities happening inside the cell, as well as DNA can control the inheritance to the next generation. For example, if you say your eye's color looks blue or brown or black, let's say, so that is because of the genes present in your DNA. So if I put together all this information which I'm stating, the DNA has two important functions. The first major function of DNA is to store the information in the form of genes. And second important function of the DNA is to transfer this information to make RNA or protein, or to control the inheritance, to transfer this information to the next generation. So again, two things. One, storage of this information, and then transferring the information to the next generation. These are two important tasks performed by our DNA. So as you can see on the slide, it is saying it carries information through generation, as I explained before, and also it controls different activities inside the cell. How I can explain this point? So in detail, this topic would be coming in the later slides, but to say very briefly, DNA basically produces RNA, and then that RNA produces protein. That means DNA contains the recipe to make RNA as well as the protein. We can take the example of insulin, let's say. Insulin is basically a protein. So who is making that protein in your body? Of course, your cells, because you never eat insulin from any food source. Have you ever eaten the insulin from the vegetables? Never. Have you ever eaten insulin from any animal material? Of course not. So who is making then the protein inside your body when you are not eating that insulin from the external sources? Well, it is your cells who are efficient to make insulin. So who is directing those cells or guiding them to make that insulin? Yes, it is your DNA. It has the capability to direct the synthesis of not only insulin but also many other proteins. So, moreover, how DNA and RNA they look different. DNA is basically double-stranded. As you can see, there are two helices which are coiled around each other, and they are presenting a structure like a double helix. And RNA is a single-stranded structure. This is DNA again, and this is RNA. So if you want to draw the DNA at home, let's say, so you can just draw it very easily. So again, I take you to the whiteboard here. So if you want to draw the RNA, that is very easy. You can just draw like that, very easy. And if you want to draw the DNA, that is again not tricky. Draw it like this, like that, and you can link the two strands together. So this becomes the DNA. So if you have any questions, again, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.